what was billed as the biggest review of Britain's defences since the Cold War. And this is all it's told them.
There will be no redundancies under this plan. There will be massive investment in our land forces.
The Prime Minister spoke to MPs after finally publishing his long-awaited integrated review of security, defence, development and foreign policy. A 100-page document which does not contain the word army once, raising questions from MPs about its future.
The Prime Minister can't avoid the question that everyone in our armed forces and their families will be asking today. Prime Minister, will there be further cuts to the strength of our army and our armed forces?
Wasn't so long ago, he was campaigning very hard, without dissent, to install a leader of the Labour Party as Prime Minister who wanted to withdraw from NATO and disband our armed forces.
It is expected that cuts of 10,000 to the army overall will take place. So will the Prime Minister be prepared to admit that this is one more broken Tory promise to our armed forces and to the people of Scotland?
And I can tell him that there'll be further investments in Lossiemouth, that there is no threat, for instance, to the Black Watch, which I know that he and his colleagues sometimes like to raise in order to alarm people.
Finally, he did give one figure, which suggests even without redundancies, the army could be heading for cuts by natural turnover.
The army, including reserves, he will be pleased to know, will be over 100,000. But it is the duty of this government to take the tough decisions that are necessary to...
The last defence review set a target size for the regular army of 82,000 soldiers and just over 30,000 reservists. Total 112,000. Right now, though, the army's total trained size is just over 103,000. The regular army is more than 5,500 people short, and the Army Reserve nearly 3,200 below trained strength. The Prime Minister's new minimum of 100,000 could still allow for thousands more army posts to disappear as people leave. But the Prime Minister insists this will still result in stronger armed forces equipped with new cutting-edge technology to give them a battle-winning edge. He says it'll all be delivered by an extra £4 billion a year that he promised last autumn. But MPs on the Public Accounts Committee say cuts are still going to be needed somewhere because there's a black hole in the budget for equipment that the MOD was already planning to buy.
I'm afraid it feels a bit like Groundhog Day, the fourth report in a row where we highlight that the Defence Equipment Plan, that's the plan for the big bits of kit, is £7 billion out of kilter at least. But I mean, we also are seeing a potential 17 billion gap, of course, because if certain things go wrong, it could get bigger. And when you think that the government's made great play of putting 16.5 billion over 4 years into the budget, we're already hearing worrying signs at our hearings about how that money could be eaten away.
The UK's nuclear deterrent looks to be in line for more money, with plans to increase numbers of nuclear warheads, reversing a trend of cuts for the last 30 years. The government calls it the ultimate insurance policy, a deterrent to prevent conflict. But it's kicked off a political fight in Westminster.
Earlier today, the Foreign Secretary justified breaking our nuclear non-proliferation treaty obligations on the grounds that nuclear weapons are, and I quote, the ultimate insurance policy against the worst threat from hostile states. Well, the logical consequence of that position is surely that every country should be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons on the same insurance policy grounds.
The nuclear uplift is meant to send a clear signal to Vladimir Putin's Russia, described as the most acute threat to our security in a world of growing conflict and instability. The review brands China a systemic challenge for the UK, describing it as an increasing risk to Britain, which is why HMS Queen Elizabeth will be sent to the South China Sea in the coming months. Yet China is also described as an increasingly important partner in global challenges, confusing and concerning even some of the government's own MPs.
We want deeper trade links and more Chinese investment in the UK. Doesn't that unfortunately demonstrate that the grasping naivety of the Cameron-Osborne years still lingers on in some departments of state?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for those who call for a new Cold War on China, or for us to sequester our economy entirely from China, which seems to be the new policy of the opposition, weaving as they generally do from one position to the next, are I think mistaken. We have a balance to strike.
The Prime Minister's integrated review has set out the sort of job that the armed forces will be expected to do in the coming years. But it's another week's wait to find out how many people will be wanted to do that job, what new equipment they can expect to have, and what old kit will be headed to the scrapyard. James Hurst, Forces News. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.